This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the November 10th, 2022 regular meeting of the North Haven Board of Education to order at 6:30. Before what I'd like to do first is acknowledge our veterans and recognize that tomorrow is Veterans Day. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to please stand and turn and face our flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We did not get to meet in October, so before beginning our meeting this evening, we would like to hold a moment of silence for Bristol Police Lieutenant Dustin DeMonte and Bristol Police Sergeant Alex Hamzy, who unfortunately lost their lives on October 12th. Our thoughts and prayers continue to be with both of their families. Thank you. Chairperson Bathrick is not here tonight, so I will be running tonight's meeting. I'd like to start with the approval of the September 8th, 2022 Board of Education meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the September 8th Board of Education meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Second item on the agenda is the field project update from Lynn Sadowski and Phil Diana. Okay. Sure, thanks.
Lynn Sadowski, I'm the Director of Public Works for the Town of North Haven. I know some of you, but some of you I don't know. So what I'll do is I have a handout that I provided all of you. I apologize for the tiny writing, but it was way better than giving you 18 by 24, so 24 by 36 is really good. First thing I'll get into is the track. You know, we've been working on the track and the field. We've had it closed since, I want to say June. Our plan was to reopen it in October. That plan has changed. We ended up regrading the field, installing some new irrigation, reseeding. We've added some change orders to the project. We're thinking that project, while it's going along great, we will probably be able to use the track in the spring. It's very difficult now to say to people, the track is beautiful. The lighting is done. It's pretty spectacular, I have to admit. However, it's very difficult to say to people, you can walk the track, but you can't get on the field. And I'm concerned that people are going to cut across the fields, kids or adults. We do have some folks, even though we've told them it's a construction project, you need to stay out. We have a lot of neighbors who have walked in and pretty much walked all over our track and sometimes our fields, and we have to escort them off. So we're going to keep it closed till springtime when we reopen for track in the spring, which is about on or around April 1st, 2023. So that is the first thing. Our contractor is Dorita & Sons out of Middletown. Great contractor, does a lot of tracks. Took us to Cheshire and a couple other places that we looked at that were really nice before we even brought them on board. Our design engineer is Weston & Sampson. We've had a lot of really good experiences with them as well. And so that kind of starts my story, if you will. And so we've got the track, we've got the field. So what's left to do in the next month, maybe 2 months, besides grow grass, is put up the goalpost for the football field. The scoreboard is on site, but it's got to be assembled. There is fencing that has to go back up that was taken down, and there's also new fencing and gates. And so we're just going to keep a close eye on it and make sure it's built to our satisfaction. So I thank everybody for the public who is listening in as well for their patience and to continue to stay out of the construction zone as best as you can, because in the spring when it's open, we're really going to wow you. It's going to be spectacular. So it's really nice. And so segueing from track and fields, we held, the town held a public bond, capital bonding meeting on June 6th. And that was attended by a few hundred people. The vote overall was to approve of a capital bonding package for $3.5 million. From that point, that would include legal fees as well as our design fees, design engineer. Again, we went with Weston and Sampson because we've had great experiences with them, and they're starting to do the preliminary design. But I'm also the town's grant administrator. I wear a lot of hats, and I kind of have slowed the project a little because we had a unique opportunity to file a grant called the Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant, and it's got a 50-50 match. So I thought, well, we've secured $3.5 million in bonding. Why not try to apply for a grant for $7 million and get $3.5 million of no cost money to the town, and essentially double the size of the project. So we applied for the grant. I submitted it on September 28th. Got a lot of great support, both sides of the aisle. Great letters of support from Congress, from Democrats, Republicans, independents. It was great. And submitted that to the Office of Policy and Management, and they told us, hang tight, we'll see if you will get an award sometime in December. So we wait, like I always do for grants. I win some, I lose some. Nothing is a sure thing when you file them. So I am waiting patiently for mid-December, maybe mid-January. And should that occur, we're looking at a totally different scope. With the $3.5 million that we have approved now from the residents of North Haven, we can do a lot, but with $7 million, we can do an incredible amount and really change a lot of different things. But what I tried to do for you in your handouts, and I apologize, I gotta wear my glasses because I can't even read this, it's so small. The bonded summary chart shows from A1 to E all the work that we're going to be doing under the bonding package. And then the wish list, which is listed below that, is the next grouping of, essentially project areas and description of what we wish to do. The prices are a little higher than we normally estimate because we're really not sure what to do with supply chain and inflation. And we got really lucky with the track. The track is comprised of asphalt as well as a rubberized surface. And some days asphalt was higher, had a higher escalation. Some days it was less. And the contractor would wait, and as it dropped, they would start doing their work. So we did get really lucky with that. There's a lot of things that we have readily available to us, and a lot of this is going to be construction work on the ground, meaning we're not going to be ordering a lot of things like scoreboards and electronics. We do want to include things if we do get the grant, like Wi-Fi for the campus, security systems, and a lot of really unique projects to make this a state-of-the-art place. But the second page, which really just talks about it's more or less a document that shows in red and blue, red being what we're looking to accomplish in the $3.5 million bonding package, and then the blue shows all the other wish list items that we're looking to do should we get the whole $7 million package. I have noticed that, I noted on the front page that I wrote draft because it is a work in progress, and until we hear about the grant, I don't have any sure things. I do have a lot of, I can tell you the $3.5 million package is pretty close, but, once things go out to bid, could be higher, could be lower, and a lot of times we work off state bids, and it ends up being a lot cheaper than what our engineers estimate. So, So in a real world, if we didn't have the grant to wait for, we'd be hitting the ground probably in May or April of next year for the bonding package of $3.5 million for the items that are shown in red. And we'd be putting it out for bid so that we could start awarding that contract and moving forward with that. That's probably going to change if we do get the grant for $7 million. Obviously, the scope will change. Any questions?
I do have a couple. So first, thank you so much for coming out to explain this to us. It's
Sure.
really helpful. Second, I know that North Haven facilities were part of the impetus for Cheshire to put in new money to get new facilities there. So we are the envy of our neighbors, and a lot of that is in part because of you two. Thank you very much for that. So are there any potential BOE incurred costs in either of these figures?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's
No.
wonderful. And does the grant chart money, which I hope we get the grant, but we had some mothers come speak with us 3 months ago, about some lighting on one of the fields within the athletic complex in order to enable more soccer usage. Is that included in this?
Yes, yes, it is. And I do have costs for that already.
Nice.
Yeah, we call that the all-purpose field, and I've met with Musco Lighting. One of the issues is once you bring a project forward, you appear to go before Inland Wetlands and then Planning and Zoning Commission for your referrals. You get an approval from one, a referral to the next, and that refers you essentially to the Board of Selectmen for the final ultimate approval. And I really just want to go before all of them one time. So, but yeah, I met with Musco. They have their lighting design. There's a lot of regulations with lighting. Unless you're in that type of project, you really don't know. But there's not allowable light trespass. And before we get to that final design, we want to do an information session with all the abutters in the area so the neighbors have a chance to weigh in and see what's going on. And bring us comments. They may say, well, geez, we see this, can this be changed? And we won't know their questions until we actually hold the session. And I can't tell you when the session's going to come because it's going to be dependent upon the grant. But we want to hear from them. We want to hear from our boards. You know, I don't believe we will affect inland wetlands and have to go to inland wetlands, but we're going to flag anyway with our consultants to make sure that we're out of the wetlands buffers. But planning and zoning will ask a lot of questions, which as sure they should. They've, you know, they're going to be interested in how are the neighbors taking to our project. It's a big project, and we want to hear from our neighbors. We want them as our partner.
Awesome, thank you very much. I really do appreciate the work that goes into this, because our facility, it's important for us to have.
Yeah, it's really going to be beautiful. I'm really wowed by the track, so it's like hard to. I'm coming off really mellow, but I want to jump up and down. Been on it a bunch of times and tested the lights, and it's pretty amazing.
Hi. I echo Amanda's appreciation for the work that you put forth, and I'll meet you on the track in April. I just want to, just a point of clarity as it relates to the security component, is that incorporated in this, or is that, 'cause I don't see it, because I just want to make sure that all the work that we're doing is.
Yeah, so we have, let's see, I gotta find it, campus Wi-Fi and Ethernet. And, well, we actually have conversations going with Weston and Sampson on Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and security.
So security would be under that bucket.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
So the town will continue to maintain the football field, is that correct? Because I think
Yeah.
that's the only field that the town maintains, right?
Yeah, we have a budget line for what's called the Vanport Complex, and that is the track, the football field, the lining of the football field, sanitation of garbage that's picked up after the games, painting of the press box, you know, taking care of things like that. Also, you know, seeding, seed mix, cutting of the lawn. There's a lot of things, and we added on the new concession stand that we built. That was built by the trades, the New Haven building trades, and that's, you know, we'd love for people to see that too. That's pretty cool too. That turned out to be pretty nice. So that's kind of waiting in the wings, so when we open in springtime, we'll see that too, but that will be handled by the town under that budget.
So, so this is a lot of money invested in some really nice fields and properties around our school. So I know I asked this last year too, but are we going to be able to maintain all of this to a level where one season or 1 year goes by and it's all a mess? Because all it takes is 1 year of New England weather to kind of mess up all of this if we don't take care of it.
That's why I believe Phil has been intimately involved with this project to make sure that we can address those needs.
With a project this size, if we get the entire 7 million, it's going to be a lot for the staff that I have presently on grounds to maintain just 5 guys. Trying to take care of all the elementary schools, the high school, the middle school, the grounds, the fields. We will probably need additional staff. I'm not sure exactly what it would be yet, at least 1 more person, possibly some additional equipment, but not much.
And Phil, that's a conversation we can have with the town too.
I'm sorry?
It's a conversation we can have with the town as
Yeah,
well to see how we can
absolutely.
share those fields. And
But it will be a big project. It will be a lot. If you're going to build something like this, you need to definitely maintain it from day one and make sure it stays in good shape. It's going to be something that the CIAC is going to be looking to do tournaments in, and it's going to be one of the best in the area.
Yeah, I feel like we really have to just pay attention to that because we can't let it get ruined. It'll just keep like throwing money out the window. Anybody else have any questions or comments? No? Okay, thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much. The third item on our agenda is our student representative report. Alex Ranciato. Hi, Alex.
So the high school has had a successful first quarter with marking period 1 coming to an end yesterday. Over this past weekend, students in the fall dramatic production performed acts of comedy, which were 3 one-act mini plays. Yesterday was also the Veterans Day / Wounded Warriors benefit concert. Looking forward, this year's homecoming dance is scheduled for this Friday. It's on sale now. On the 21st, the Nike Bowl girls football game is set to play with the boys Thanksgiving football game on the 23rd. And lastly, senior to senior breakfast is planned for December 7th, something which I'm excited for.
Great, thank you very much. Just to remind everybody, just because of the fans going on, we'll just try to speak loudly so that everybody can hear us, okay? Thanks, Alex. The fourth thing on our agenda is something new that Mr. Bathrick added to our agenda, which is the mid-meeting public comment session. So this session is has a 20-minute limit. Just this part of the public comment has a 20-minute limit with a 5-minute per person max. So before we start with that, what I do want to say before we start with the public comments is I want to thank everyone who emailed the board over the past month and a half since we've had our last meeting. Many of you are here. Many of you shared your thoughts with us this evening, so we really do appreciate all of the emails and all of the comments that you've shared. Before we start, also, I would like to address 2 items that we discussed during our last meeting, which are why I'm sure many of you are here tonight. So the first thing is about North Haven is not banning any books. We are not about that. We are not doing that. However, there is always an option for a student to read a different text that still meets the instructional requirements. So if your child, or if you are uncomfortable with your child reading a certain text, we encourage you to talk to the teacher, talk to administration, have a conversation about that. The second thing I'd like to mention is the teacher surveys. So students have the option to opt out of non-curricular surveys. They can opt out of part of it, they can opt out of all of it, but we do encourage, again, a conversation with the teacher should they decide to opt out of part or all of a non-curricular survey. With that, I would like to open our 20 minutes of public comments. Eleni is going to keep time of 20 minutes and also the 5 minutes per person so that we can stay with our schedule. So if you would like to speak, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and please sign in on the pad.
Randy.
Yes.
So we set it at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so if you hear it go off, then you know you have 30 seconds left. So we don't just cut you off.
Is there anyone that would like to speak? Thank you.
All right, I will not take 5 minutes of your time. My name is Scott Friedman. I really want to thank all of you for your service to the board and for your time tonight. And also thank you for starting the meeting with that input. I guess I come here in response to the public comments that I saw at this September meeting, and also to speak to some of the board discussion that happened both prior to and during that session. To put it lightly, the asking of gender pronouns and the adherence to them once shared is an incredibly important way to maintain the safety of those students. It is documented and through peer-reviewed research that mental health suffers when we don't allow the children of our community to be their fullest self and understand who they are. I also appreciate that North Haven is not banning books, but I will say that beyond simply not banning books, I think it's super important for us to challenge our students to think beyond their home, beyond their town, beyond their country, and inhabit the spaces that they are unable to simply because of where they grew up. I hope my daughter is not yet in the school system. I hope for her sake that we can continue to expand their minds and do so by challenging even my own beliefs. I welcome that. So, just in conclusion, I just want to say thank you again and let you know that I really hope that you show the community the discussions that you have perhaps behind the scenes to both understand the legal obligations you have to those students who are sharing their pronouns, and also to give the community a little bit more insight into the way you're approaching these issues, because the prior discussion was not robust, I'll put it that way. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your energy, and have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi everybody, my name is Tim Gabriel, Renee Lane, and though probably a lot of you know me, I'm going to introduce myself by first starting to say that I use he, him, his pronouns. Many of you probably might think that you know this already, or you might think that adding the extra step of announcing my pronouns is unnecessary or performative or silly or any of those things, and you wouldn't be alone in that. But I would argue that it is vital for cisgendered folks like myself to exit our comfort zone and modify our traditional notions of etiquette in order to adopt the sharing of pronouns if we're serious about seeing ourselves as allies and supporters of the transgender, non-binary, and questioning community. And I think it's important to first establish that if you feel that there's a little bit of resistance to that, you need to know it's not about you. Me saying all this stuff, it's not about me trying to win the woke Olympics or give myself a pat on the back or anything. It's just not about me, it's not about you. So who is it about? It's very simply, and I've explained this when I've tried to adapt this practice within my office or within my union committee or other groups where it's been easy, once you kind of give them a little bit of an explanation. By telling others what pronouns you use, you're establishing yourself and hopefully the spaces that you have adopted this practice as safe and affirmative spots for people who are transgender, non-binary, or questioning to share who they are. Not only their pronouns, but also their experiences, their challenges, their joys, and yes, their struggles as well. So ostensibly, it's a courtesy, a formality, and that's exactly what it is. But it's also a very powerful symbol of welcome, a gesture that has repercussions beyond the mere exchange of pleasantries. And the reason that is because nearly 1 in 5 transgender and non-binary youth attempts suicide every year. That's 1 in 5. So this is not exactly a pleasantry when you put it this way. This making children feel safe in these spaces is a life-saving measure. So fewer than 1 in 3 transgender and non-binary youth said that they found that their homes are gender affirming. So if there was a lot of questions about, you want to know why it's necessary for children to tell their educators instead of their parents about this stuff, it's because the odds that they feel safe in their home is not necessarily in their favor. 28% of LGBTQ youth also experience homelessness and housing instability at some point in their life before they turn 18. 16% say they run away from home. 14% say that they kicked out. I have a lot of grim, depressing statistics. I could go on about this, but I know we got a 5-minute limit here. So you add all this stuff together, along with the myriad hateful legislation that's being proposed across the country, this is the base reality that transgender LGBTQ folks face on a daily basis. And even the ones who are in loving, supporting homes still have to contend with this reality in some form. And I know this all too well because I have a child who's LGBTQ and she has parents who support her. And they care about her well-being more than she will ever know. But we also know that we will face the veneer of hatred from time to time, even in a welcoming community like ours. So there are ways to mitigate this, and believe me when I say that sharing your pronouns is not going to do the whole job for you. But it begins with accepting that LGBTQ children are people. My daughter is not a unicorn, and she is not an airplane. And when you come to a public meeting and you make light of the real dangers that her and her peers face on a daily basis, the real suffering that they endure, you are choosing the side of her bullies. LGBTQ kids are human beings and they deserve the same dignity of all of their peers that they frequently take for granted. So if you're really concerned, parents that are out there, about whether your child might be questioning their gender or their orientation or anything really, then it's time to be a goddamn parent and have a conversation with them. Don't come into our schools harassing our educators who've been through so much when they are trying to protect children in situations from harm, including self-harm. So I heard a lot of concern. I've heard a lot of concern over these past years about mental health, and that's great. I am very concerned about mental well-being as well. But if you are serious about that, then you need to take the concerns of LGBTQ kids, parents, staff, and their allies seriously. And if you are genuinely afraid that your children might be sharing things with a teacher or a counselor or even another peer that they might not be sharing with you, then you need to start working on those relationships, rebuilding the bonds of trust.
30 seconds.
And
Sorry.
making sure that, you are having a good relationship with your child. But if you try to come here and score political points over bullying the most vulnerable population, I think it's time to exit the conversation because you're playing with fire and children's lives are on the line. So I know that this board and the administrators, the teachers, the staff, on down to the bus monitors and the SROs have always worked hard to make sure that the North Haven schools are a safe and welcoming environment for all of our students. And I want to thank you for continuing that work and making sure that everyone in our school district has all the resources that he, she, or they need, both inside and outside the school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick Kill, 108 Grove Road. I want to thank the members of the board for their service to the town. I recognize that everyone's a volunteer and it's not glamorous, but it's necessary work, necessary to the town, necessary to the citizens, and most importantly, necessary to the students. So I appreciate all of you. I'm here because at the last Board of Education meeting in September, there were a group of individuals here, both parents and outside political activists, that seemed outraged by a few different things. The first item was a teacher-initiated Google survey about a student's preferred gender pronouns and preferred names. It seems some teachers proactively trying to be inclusive ruffled some feathers. After several parents spoke, a couple of members of the board indicated the quote-unquote survey had been stopped and that they would quote-unquote speak with administration regarding the survey. Board members also implied that there would be consequences for those teachers not following quote-unquote the protocol. The state has provided legal guidance on these types of situations, and if I can summarize the 8-page State of Connecticut document on inclusion into one sentence, the job of the schools is to foster a welcoming learning environment for all children. Not just certain children, not just the ones you like or don't like, not just the ones you feel most comfortable around. All children. So no matter what anyone on the board or anyone else feels, the survey sent complied with state law, and it appears that the teachers followed state protocol. And it's important to note that based on the guidance, if there's a disagreement or discrepancy between the student and the parents regarding pronouns or names, the state guidance for schools is to, among other things, refer the families to appropriate support or counseling services. So there should not be a situation where the parents do not know what is going on in theory. Secondly, I want to address another topic that was brought up at the meeting. It was the discussion of the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian book by Sherman Alexie. As with most people that spoke at that meeting in September, I have not read the book, only passages. Therefore, I am equally as qualified to espouse on generalities as those individuals were. Generality number one, book banning is a bad thing. So is the euphemistic term of removing a book. And removing a book based on its content being, as one person said, non-Christian, and as another person said, immoral, according to someone's own opinion, is especially inappropriate. Generality number two, some of the book's main topics, discrimination, bullying, alcohol, violence, overall teen life, seem to make it relevant enough to be a book that students can choose to read for a project, if they wish. The last thing I want to talk about is that I noticed that Colleen from the special interest group Parents' Choice spoke at the last meeting, spewing critical race theory, teacher indoctrination of students, and other nonsense. Inexplicably, the board allowed her to speak for 4 minutes, and I think she brought up 5 different conspiracy theories in that time. I know it's public comment here, but I would submit that a special interest group like Parents' Choice is not a member of the public, but a private entity funded by folks looking to push a certain agenda. If the board wants to entertain people from special interest groups, maybe a different meeting where the board can hear from all the special interest groups equally would be more constructive, or maybe even an agenda item entitled Special Interest Group Comment would be appropriate. To sum things up, I am in favor of Google surveys that foster inclusion. I am not in favor of book banning or book removal, and I am not in favor of special interest groups taking up the public comment at Board of Education meetings. Again, I thank the members of the board for their service, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Hi, I'm Josh Bornstein. I live on 66 Homewood Avenue. I'm a business owner. I have children here at the high school and at Ridge Road. First of all, thank you all for your service. You're not here for the money or the power. You're here because you love the community, and it really is it's a huge burden that you undertake month after month. So thank you for that. It's a lot, and especially during COVID, which you really had to go above and beyond. I just want to make 3 quick points because I've already sent an email to all of you last month. I think it's really important that we take preferred pronouns or child's chosen pronouns seriously, because the acceptance of pronouns allows you to is about moving from tolerating a child's gender identity to accepting that identity. I have a lot of friends and family who identify as LGBTQ. I teach as well, and I certainly have students who identify as non-binary. And the use of those pronouns, by using them, shows that you accept that if they're transitioning, you accept that they don't identify along traditional gender lines, and that goes to actually a more productive classroom, and it goes to a more accepting and welcoming environment all around. Second, I applaud you for not banning an absolutely true diary part-time Indian. I actually have read it. I read it a couple of years ago. It's great. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I just want to make one comment, is that I don't think we as a school system, when the students are ready for it, should shy away from challenging material, because challenging content, whatever the medium is, whether it's Netflix or film or books or magazines, our children are going to be surrounded by challenging content that might be violent or sexually charged or feature substance abuse their entire lives. Whether they go to college or not, they're surrounded by it. I would rather that my children are guided by a trained educator in terms of how to process that content and experience it in a school setting, and then while we're home, so if they have questions, they can talk with us about it, versus going out into the world and maybe encountering really challenging content for the first time outside of the North Haven public school systems. The last thing I just want to say is that there were some remarks at the September 8th meeting that I found incredibly offensive of our teachers. So our teachers were described as rogues with secret agendas, and someone even said that maybe they're committing statutory rape. And I just want to say, for the record, and I'm sure you all agree, our teachers were heroes during the COVID-19 crisis. They to a person, put our children first, and we should show nothing but our gratitude and our support for them, for everything that they did during that period and what they continue to do to educate our children moving onward. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
4 minutes.
How are we on time?
You're good. You can go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Huntley, formerly of 2107 Harper Turnpike. My daughter, Ava, is a senior at the high school, and I just wanted to take some time to come today and speak to all of you, as I have done in the past, and be clear regarding the nature in which my comments are being informed. Because as I stated, I am a parent of a high school senior, but I am also a higher education professional who has been working in that field for 20 years, primarily in teacher education and counselor education, and preparing the individuals that are going to take on the roles that we are currently discussing. And at the last meeting, there was an individual that stood up and spoke and was speaking to the things that are being included in pre-service teacher education at our local institutions. As somebody who not only creates that curriculum and approves it, but I'm also responsible for ensuring that we actually assess it and demonstrate that they have the professional dispositions, knowledge, and skills to then go into our public PK through 12 classrooms and be effective educators. I can assure you that if we look over the curriculum that is actually based on State of Connecticut Department of Education guidelines that inform institutions such as the two which I have oversight over, Goodwin University out of East Hartford and the University of Bridgeport in Bridgeport, Connecticut, that has a fantastic Master's in Science and Education program, as well as a great new Master's in Education program, that we are seeing our students have a successful career going into Connecticut public schools. And I can assure all of you that we are not, in fact, training pre-service teachers for left-wing agenda indoctrination. On the other hand, if we actually look at the policy guideline position statement for creating a healthy learning environment that is physically, emotionally, and intellectually safe, there are guidelines for the State Department of Education, school districts, schools, higher education institutions, and all of the constituents within the state of Connecticut. And I would just like to draw everyone's attention, the folks that are here, as you may know, being Board of Education members, what is expected of districts. In public comment, I think it's really important that we make the general public aware of it as well, that the school districts have responsibilities to ensure that they are promoting efforts to improve school climate as a critical component for effective learning and school reform. Part of that, in creating and maintaining a healthy learning environment, it is very specific here that they are to incorporate research-based approaches and practices that contribute to the creation of productive, healthy, and safe learning environments. And as you've heard people speak tonight, there is actually substantial bodies of research that suggest things such as speaking to children about culture, different aspects of their culture, whether that is race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and other things related to identity, is critical to their education as well as their feelings of safety to have a positive learning environment in the classroom and beyond. More specifically, just in the last year, in 2021, the position statement on culturally responsive approaches to education and guidelines for policymakers were given out, including school district expectations, and it specifically reviews the things that we are expected in public PK through 12 school districts to ensure that are happening at a district level as well as in individual schools. Again, this is available to the public. Anybody can find these documents. But I found it particularly important to address in light of things that have come up in recent meetings regarding pronouns and books that are discussing things that are potentially uncomfortable topics that challenge our students to think of things that are not within line with their own lived experiences. That's how we're going to create the global citizens that individuals such as myself are prepared to take on when they come to us for higher education at the collegiate level, which, please correct me if I'm wrong, but North Haven has a great rate of students going on to pursue higher education if that is in fact their path. And so I could just let you know at both of the institutions that I work at, if you send me an email, you will get a response from me. And in my email signature, it says Dr. Christy Huntley, Director of Institutional Effectiveness, she, her, hers. And in parentheses, a hyperlink, why pronouns matter. So we know why they matter, and we are counting on the schools, particularly in the state of Connecticut, to do their part, so when they come to us, this is not something that they haven't heard before, because it is something that is woven throughout all of the coursework that they take, and not just for the individuals that are there to become teachers. From the business major through the engineer, they are all being exposed to these things in higher education, and so we appreciate the partnership with the PK through 12 public system, as that is often the student population that we get at both of those institutions, and many others in the state of Connecticut. So I thank you all for your time, as I have many times in the past, and I just really felt that it was important to bring us back to the guidelines that we are responsible to ensure are being followed, because North Haven is a public school district under the state of Connecticut Department of Education. I thank you all.
Thank you.
Randy, that was 20 minutes.
That's 20 minutes, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We do have public comment at the end of the meeting as well, if you can hold off till then. Sure. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the fifth item on our agenda is the consent agenda. There are a few things on here I need to read through first before we approve. The extended maternity leave for Robin Albertson, grade 3 teacher at Montauk. The extended maternity leave for Erica Salerno, K1 teacher at Green Acres. The extended maternity leave for Lara Sorelli, 2-3 teacher at Green Acres. The extended child rearing leave for Jennifer Frechette, grade 6 English at North Haven Middle School. The retirement of Marianne Hardy, math teacher, North Haven High School in June of 2023. The resignation of Ava Carano, special education teacher at North Haven High School. And the resignation of Samantha Gettings, English teacher at North Haven Middle School. Oh, Marianne is here. Where is Marianne? I don't know where she, I can't see her. I can't see. Oh, my glass.
Ask her to stand.
Marianne, where's Marianne Hardy? Marianne, there you are. I'm so sorry. Marianne, thank you so much for all of your years here in North Haven. You taught for us for how long?
I've been in North Haven since 2000.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your work. Thank you. Everybody's blurry to me. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. Thank you. Okay, we don't have any, that's right, thank you. So we don't have anyone for parent representatives here tonight, so we'll move on to the seventh item of our agenda. I don't have anything other than to say that we have different board members that are going to be visiting the schools throughout the district, representing the board at the schools, kind of a way for us to learn about what's happening in our schools and communicate that information to the board. So Goldie is going to be at Clintonville. I will be at Green Acres. Marty will be for Montauk. Joe is Ridge Road. Eleni and Marie are at the middle school, and Amanda and Thais are at the high school. Did everybody know that already? Okay, so do you need to say it again? Everybody's got it? Okay. I didn't know if that was new information or old information for us. All right, so the 8th thing on our agenda is the report of standing committees. So ACES.
I went to meeting at ACES. A lot of it was boilerplate information. They did say, like we have in the school systems, there's a shortage of special ed teachers, but they're trying to encourage people to come in, and they have a learning program that as they get people coming in, they will work them through to become certified teachers, and that seems to be improving somewhat. They have a pairing program going on to help 5 families at the Mill Road School. These are families in need, and they're coming under a federal program which requires, of all things, to help the families with food service, provides them with first aid kits and various other essentials to allow the children to improve their position. Excuse me. At ECA, they had an open house with 175 families in attendance. They're doing a learning walk in Woolcut. They had visitations from most of the major television studios here in Connecticut for the elementary schools. Schuber's also opening them up for the theatrical area, with people going into the behind-the-scenes program at Schubert. Head Start is also being a problem. They're looking at some changes in their enrollment. They have a project at Leader Hill School, which is in Hamden. That's a renovation program. And they also presented us with, if anybody wants to see it, what they're calling a universal school calendar. They had a number of school systems put in for the 2023-24 system, and this is a calendar which they're putting out, and they're saying no school system has to follow it, but it's there for anybody who wants to look at it. And they've also put out their tuition rates for Whitney North, Whitney Academy, Mill Road School, Mead School, Village School, EIBI, and Sales. They did not put out the magnet schools. Apparently there is some either state or federal legislation coming down that all of those expenses will be paid by the government and not the school systems. But that's basically what I have.
Great, thank you. Curriculum, instruction, and planning?
I can give the report if you like, since Joe's not here. Sure. Okay. We've had 2 meetings. The CNI committee met on November 4th, and we discussed the following field trips, which then you can make a motion for. One is a band chorus trip to Boston in April. There was a second music field trip that we proposed, but it actually is in state, so it's not a problem. We don't need to bring it before the board. The North Haven High School hockey team to play in a tournament in Warwick, Rhode Island on February 4th, and the North Haven High School Italian class to go to the Tenement Museum in April. We also discussed a couple of clubs at that meeting. We talked about an HBCU, Historically Black College and University Crew Club that was proposed by students. The group thought that this was a great idea, but should also be connected tightly with our guidance department to make sure that students have all of the resources that they need. We also discussed an Impact Connecticut Club. We talked about a proposal to shift the expectation from the mastery-based diploma journal entries from 5 to 4, and improve the, we're just reducing it by 1 thing that the students need to do. After a year of the students going through it, the administration felt that this was better for students. We also talked about approving and awarding 1 elective credit to students at the high school who are in our English learner course. It would just be an elective, but we do similar credits for skills classes and other areas at the high school. And at that meeting, Tracy Gambardella, our K-8 language arts coordinator, joined us, and she highlighted the language arts curriculum at the middle school level. Then our group met again this evening prior to this meeting, and we discussed a field trip to Newport, Rhode Island for our culinary and interior design students. That would be in December. We also talked about 2 new clubs, a middle school robotics club and a Dungeons and Dragons club at the high school. We talked about an AP course offering for next year. It's called AP Human Geography, and this will be open to students in grades 10 through 12 as an elective. We also decided to award students the option of not having to take their final exam in science if they score a 3 or a 4 on the state mandated Next Generation Science assessment. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
So, can I ask a quick question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. The Newport, yes, I did. That was the culinary and the interior design, yep.
Can I ask
Yes,
a quick
of
question?
course.
If there's interest to form a club at one of our schools, how would folks go about requesting that?
So students will typically approach one of the principals, one of the administrators, and there's a form that they have in the buildings that and most of these clubs that we talk about are totally student generated. There's a form, they fill out that form, they ask for, on that form it asks for a student advisor, so that's usually a teacher or another faculty member, and then the school looks it over, and then it comes up to me and I bring it directly to CNI.
Great. I know that there's been some interest expressed in some clubs at the middle school level.
Yep, I was just going to say, and it's really great to see them from kids' perspectives, kind of designing things that they have an interest in and finding faculty and staff that are kind of connected to that. And we're so thankful because so many of our staff members, they truly volunteer their time to run these clubs. They're not compensated for that, and they're passionate about what their students want, and they do their work. And they vary. Sometimes they meet once a month, sometimes they meet weekly, whole range of different ways. A lot of them do try to connect it to the days we have the late buses, though, because that's convenient for students to get home.
Great. Anything else? Okay, so there are 5 trips, different events that we need to approve. So I'll go through all of them and then we'll have the motion. So the first is the approval of the North Haven High School Band and Chorus Field Trip to Boston, Massachusetts, Festivals of Music on April 21st to the 23rd, 2023. Approval of CMEA Southern Regional Auditions for select North Haven High School students, location to be determined on November 19th, 2022. Approval of the North Haven High School Hockey Team Field Trip to Warwick, Rhode Island on February 4th, 2023. Approval of the North Haven High School Italian class field trip to New York Tenement Museum on April 18th, 2023, which is a tentative date. And approval of the North Haven High School Culinary Interior Design field trip to Newport, Rhode Island at various locations on November 28th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve each of the above-mentioned field trips?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to put one point of clarity in there. The dates of the field trips, they obviously don't book the field trips until they come through the process of CNI and the board. So sometimes, it may be November, it'll probably be November, December for like that Newport trip. It may not be the exact date because by the time it comes through everything, we have to work with the bus company and such to get everything out, so.
Thank you for...
Yeah, I just wanted to be totally transparent about that.
I'm just happy we get to do field trips again.
Yes.
This feels good.
Really. Any other comments or discussion?
For the Tenement Museum trip, are they going to have somebody come in to discuss the immigrant migration from wherever, I guess in this case, Italy?
And they do a lot of work with that prior to going.
Yeah, because it's it's a very unique place that basically, for those who don't know, it was locked up for almost 70 years. And when they opened it up, It's been preserved just as they found it. It's absolutely unique to the immigrant migration.
And prior to kind of our COVID shutdown of field trips, our students had been going and very positively received and lots of learning. So yes, they embed it into the curriculum prior to going and then after as well.
Great. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motions are approved. Thank you. North Haven Education Foundation.
I can provide that update.
Okay.
All right. So the Ed Foundation held their monthly meeting this morning in central office. They discussed future fundraising opportunities and events, one of which being a comedy night during the spring and potentially another trivia night, which had great success in the past. Also, a few grants were submitted by teachers. They were discussed, and the Ed Foundation wanted to make sure that grant requests are always welcomed and encouraged. The foundation is also looking to expand the media platforms in which the foundation can promote the good work they do for our students, our teachers, and really for the entire district. There was discussion on which avenues will reach the most people, and one discussion point was adding an update in the weekly school principal updates that they have to reach parents a little more readily. But as always, they just wanted me to share that they're looking for new members. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to myself. The chairperson is Bernie Pellegrino, if you know who that is. But if you're interested in joining the foundation, please give us a shout. Not us, I'm not on the foundation. I'm just a representative.
All right, thank you. Policy? Do you want me to read those, or do you want me to read through that?
So if you don't mind, I have a few updates on each of the policies.
Yeah.
So tonight's a first read on the policies listed. There will be a second read next month, and then they will go potentially up for approval at the meeting following that. With budget in there, so there might be some flexibility in time there. So I'm just going to get a little update around why each of these policies are being presented to the board tonight. I'm going to start with the meal charging policy. This is actually a new policy for 2022. It is concerning the collection of unpaid charges for school lunches, breakfasts, etc. And after the second read of the policy, the board can decide and discuss how to communicate with families around this and really decide when to provide notification of charges that we have not received or funds we have not received from students. So that's really a board decision, but the policy itself has to be in place. So there's some flexibility there for the board. Physical activity, undirected play, and student discipline. This is a new model policy which complies with new legislation from the state and requires boards of education to adopt a policy concerning the circumstances when a school employee may prevent an elementary student from participating the entire time devoted to physical education during the regular school day. The board has some discretion around adopting rules to regulate the restriction. But the policy in your packets offers just a sample for you to look at, and then there can be discussion moving forward. The next one, a policy to improve the completion rates of the FAFSA form. This is also a new policy that directs boards of education to improve completion rates for students enrolled in grade 12, or if we maintain an adult education program. We do not. We go through Hamden for adult education. So this one's also in your packets. And the model policy meets all statutory requirements and regulations. So the curriculum exemption policy that's in there, that first read, this is a revised version. We already have one in play. But this one only includes firearm safety programs. So right now there are 4 curriculum exemptions. I may mess them up, but they're dissection, HIV/AIDS, family life, and there's one I always forget that's on there. I'll pull it at some point. But the 5th one would be firearms. Right now we do not. What's that?
It was a sexual abuse.
Oh, sexual abuse. Thank you. And the 5th one is firearm safety programs. So that's really the only difference in that policy. And the last one, student attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism. This is also a revised policy, one that the board already has in place. And there's a policy and administrative regulations to comply with the new guidance from the State Department of Ed regarding mental health wellness days. This update requires the policy to include a provision, notice to parents and guardians of students who are truant, and a notice must also include information around 211. So we'll have more discussion at the next meeting unless you want to have some talk around it now, but we do have a few meetings to talk it through.
Anybody have any questions or any of that? Nope.
Just some time to read through.
It was a thick packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was. All right, Ad hoc District Calendar Committee.
So we've had 2 meetings. Our initial meeting, we kind of set some goals. We reviewed some materials. The materials included calendars from other districts and some of the dates and observance days that some of the other districts around our area included. Our second meeting, we reviewed state and federal holidays, as well as some slides created by the high school of observance days that the high school felt was significant. And we also discussed how kind of holidays are codified for absences. And we'll meet again we met at the end of November. We'll meet again at the end of November for our third meeting, and then we'll report in our December meeting. And we did look at that calendar that you had, Marty, the ACES one.
Thank you. All right, 9th item on our agenda is staff communications, so superintendent's report.
Thank you. So this evening, I'm going to share a few personal thoughts with the board and the community. I've really prepared my thoughts in advance, and I just don't want to get sidetracked, so I may do a little reading from them as well. So over the past few weeks and months, I've really had the pleasure of touring our schools with our new board members, Ms. Moore and Mr. Rudnick. And I took this opportunity to alter my normal outlook of each school. I really wanted to see the buildings through their eyes. So Ms. Moore and Mr. Rudnick are current or former parents, but this is the first time that they've been in our buildings as a board member. So I'm sure that they viewed the schools very differently than they did when they were our parents or were parents. So my goal was to join them in observing this with an objective point of view. So during the tours, I really found the instruction and support within our school system nothing short of awe-inspiring. Each building had a culture of caring and a sense of purpose. Teachers at every school stopped us to brag and to boast about their students and what's happening in their classrooms. One teacher had their door closed when we walked by, saw us, ran out the door to pull us back into their room so they could share what they were doing in their classroom. Our teachers and support staff are working diligently and passionately to do what's best for their students. However, I can see that some of the undue and unjust pressure placed upon our teachers are slowly stripping that passion away. For every teacher, the pressures of the job truly melt away when you're in the class doing what you love. However, I'm beginning to worry that some of these forces are becoming insurmountable. As a town that has always valued and supported education, as well as the experts who are trusted to instruct our students, we all really need to rally around our teachers. They need to feel the support, and they need to feel that their expertise is valued. They have dedicated their professional and truly much of their personal lives to this work. They care more deeply about this profession and your children than I could share or put into words this evening. So my hope in sharing this statement with you tonight is just for us to recommit to those who are moving the district's work forward by teaching and caring for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Melinda, Assistant Superintendent report.
Okay, last month I attended a leadership meeting at Goodwin University, which is also connected with University of Bridgeport, as we heard earlier. The focus of this meeting was around enhancing our career and technical education offerings and to begin planning for new courses with the goal of giving students career pathways after graduation. Oh, sure. Chris Johnson, one of our tech ed teachers at the high school, attended a week-long advanced manufacturing summer institute at Goodwin. He was on track 1 of 2 that focused on more modernized career and tech opportunities, blueprint reading, principles of manufacturing, and other topics. The great part of that professional development was the inclusion of industry leaders in Connecticut and their participation alongside Chris. As a district, we're continuing to look for partnerships with local universities and businesses to provide our students with as many pre-college credits as possible, as well as opportunities to explore various career paths and gain industry-recognized credentials. We call them IRCs and certifications. As I had mentioned, we have partnerships with the University of Bridgeport, Gateway, UConn, and the University of New Haven. Eleni, at a previous meeting, you inquired about our partnership with Quinnipiac. And at this time, we are working on an articulation agreement for our media course with the communications department. Our numbers of students interested in our communications courses, our media courses is just skyrocketing. We are also exploring opportunities for articulation agreements in English and art at Quinnipiac as well. We are also in the process of exploring and updating our engineering courses, looking into certified nursing assistant pathways and other manufacturing offerings. More to follow as I bring these new course offerings and ideas to the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. On October 27th, we had 24 of our seniors take the Seal of Biliteracy assessment that I had mentioned at our September meeting. We were so thrilled with this high interest, and we'll find out in the next few weeks about how many of them actually passed the assessment. If they didn't, those seniors will have an opportunity to try again in the spring as well, which is really wonderful. On an elementary note, I am closely following the science of reading legislation, which you may have heard about, which impacts pre-K to 3 literacy instruction and assessments and ties in with some of the dyslexia screening mandates. As we learn more about the options and the required assessments, I will update the CNI committee and the board. At this point, there are still many unknowns at the State Department level, and the Connecticut Association of School Superintendents has been communicating with the State Department in asking to make shifts to these mandates. So we're just watching. We're in a very good spot to move forward if we need to, but we want to be thoughtful and not just jump to make changes. As Patrick mentioned at our September meeting, we offered CPR training for teachers this week at our November professional development time, along with Stop the Bleed training. Coupled with that, though, a few of our physical education teachers went above and beyond and attended outside training to become trainers themselves. This is wonderful because it will increase our internal capacity, and even more exciting, we are planning to hold a CPR module for students as part of our health PE curriculum in grades 8 and 11. We had always had it at the high school, but we're going to be bringing it to the middle school, and students will be able to acquire a certificate from their learning. And the district continues to participate in many workshops and trainings around how to provide the most inclusive learning environment for all students. Most recently, I attended a forum hosted by the Guilford Human Rights Commission, and the district will also be participating in a CAS, which is the Connecticut Association of Schools Leadership Conference, around how great leaders can support all students. And lastly, our elementary buildings will have the unique opportunity to work with the North Haven Poet Laureate in January. We will be doing a poetry study in grade 2 in all 4 schools, and Gabriella Brand, who was named the Poet Laureate of North Haven, will share her writing and expertise with our students. Many thanks to Tracy Gambardella for bringing this amazing opportunity to our students. Our children will be working on poems, and that they will be featured at a townwide poetry celebration at the library in February. So it's a super cool opportunity for us. And I'm sorry for such a long report. But
Thank you very much. Director of Student Services report.
The staff are doing a phenomenal job with the new CT SED system. The staff are writing quality IEPs and 504s to support our students. I was able to carve out time for the staff to work on the IEPs back in October and November and going forward. I will continue to check in with the staff to identify what support is needed, and I truly appreciate the collaboration among colleagues when developing the new IEP in 504.
Thank you, Jen. Director of Finance Operations and Human Resources.
Thank you. As my monthly report showed for September and October, the spending continues to be steady with respect to all accounts. There are no new items that stand out as exceptions to that statement, but what I'll do is I'll stop now and ask if anyone has any questions about the report. So, no one does?
Right at you.
I know you're my go-to person. Also, I included the monthly transfers for September and October. Transfer reports are provided in your package, and I'll stop here and ask if there's any questions about those. Okay. From an operational item standpoint, cafeteria fund, as my report indicated, we filed our annual report with the state showing our operational surplus for fiscal year of 22 ending in June was $450,000. The state requires any district with an operational surplus to provide a plan of how they intend to spend down the funds. The district plan was provided in your package and included the equipment purchases as well as the request to provide free lunches and breakfasts to all through December 31st. I'm just going to continue on to the next one, then I'll stop for questions or any concerns about that. Smart funds, which is that $350,000 money that we have that's providing the free lunches to all students. As noted in my prior statement, it appears from all calculations that these funds will run out in early December, depending upon the daily usage. We are recommending that the Board of Ed approve that the use of excess funds to provide all students the ability to access free meals through the end of December. It's going to be hard to estimate what that would cost us. At a minimum, it's going to cost us about $90,000. It might be a little more than that. It's depending upon use of how many people actually take lunches and things like that. Based on what I saw, just because I literally just got October's reports today, I think it's going to be a little higher than that, probably closer to $100,000. So I just want to put that out there. Are there any questions about those programs?
Go. I don't have a question necessarily. I just want to say that this is really wonderful that we're able to do this. Like, I think it has a big impact on families in town. So I certainly support it, and I thank you for continuing to help us look at ways that we can make this work for families.
Great. I'll move on to the reserve accounts. As the report showed, the medical, we're at $2.8 million, which is approximately 125% of the year-end midpoint required by our actuaries. To get to the high end, we'd have to have approximately another $125,000 in that reserve fund to make what they consider the maximum amount that we should have there. Workers' compensation, we're at $766,000. If you saw the report, again, we didn't have the meeting last month, but there was an incident that had potential to be a very bad incident. We had a bus monitor who had an accident. We've since been updated from PMA that it's not going to be as a major incident. He actually had a medical issue while on the job. And so because it's a medical issue, it's not a workers' compensation claim. It actually is, but it could become a workers' compensation claim because he got injured because of the medical issue. I know, Thais, you know more about this than, yeah, so you understand. There's actually a court case out there where a worker had an issue, they were injured, and because of the injury that was caused by on the job, that became workers' comp. So we're still working through it. I will continue to update the board about this, but it could have been some more severe than actually we think it's going to be. So we have a SPED fund, still has $311,000. We are now going to request that the board, as we did last year, use this SPED fund to pay the legal bills for SPED only. We actually had budgeted $100,000. As of, we just got the November bill in today, we've spent now $127,000 in legal bills for SPED-related legal incidents. So again, it's over, and so we'd like to utilize this fund so that we can preserve the operating budget so that we don't have to borrow from other areas. And then also capital projects, we have $343,000 as a balance with just the closed projects. But if you look at the projects that are in the pipeline, our balance is really down to $69,000. And so continuing with that thought, the town has approached us with the idea to create a memorandum of understanding between the town and the Board of Finance and the Board of Education that codifies the process at year end for the use of any excess funds remaining in the Board of Ed's operating budget. Currently, there's an informal agreement between the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed that allows the Board of Ed to move any excess funds into what we call on their books Fund 423, which is the Capital Projects Fund. And that allows us to spend that money going forward. It's basically a fund that just sits there for capital projects, and so we can utilize those funds that were in the operating budget for that going forward. Per Connecticut state law, the Board of Ed is allowed to move up to 2% of its budget to a non-lapsing fund on the town's books with approval from both the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance. Once the funds are deposited into the non-lapsing fund, the Board of Ed can then utilize them for any educational purpose that you deem necessary or worthy. The town is asked to codify this procedure by creating this MOU. In the summary, the MOU states the following. The Board of Ed can move up to 2% of its budget to what's now going to be Fund 373. It's just a different fund number. It's basically the same thing as the 423 on the town's books to a maximum of 3% of the total Board of Ed budget. So that means that the Board of Ed would not be allowed to have any more than approximately $1.8 million sitting in that account at any given point in time. You'll have until August 31st to inform the Board of Finance that you want to do this. And then only once the Board of Finance, if they approve it, once they approve it, only the Board of Ed will have to approve the money coming back out. The town will have nothing to do with it after that. And then we'll just have to provide a report periodically to the Board of Finance about what's being spent on, no different than we're providing now with the capital budget report.
Can I ask you a question on that one?
That's next.
Okay. So why would we need an MOU if there's a state law saying that that's common practice, that is allowed by state law?
So the town attorney has actually asked that, and the town have actually, because the Board of Finance has actually asked for this. They're asked, we don't necessarily need it. Some towns have it, most towns don't because there's a state law. What they're doing, but the town is looking at it from the perspective of, I think they looked at Westport, Newtown, I forget the other towns they looked at. They have these MOUs in place that actually codify what the procedure is. Again, we don't need it, but the town is asking for it.
So I think it's good to point out right now that like some of the special education reserve is being utilized. Like it's raining right now. We have a rainy day fund. It's raining. That's good because it helps preserve our main budget for the rest of the work that we need to do right now. So I know that there's been some discussion among like one particular Board of Finance member about like why we have special education funds or why we have capital reserves. So I'm okay with doing an MOU, but we're complying with all state laws. We're following not only just like common practices, but best practices from financial accounting. So I just want to make sure that everybody in the public knows and understands that this is an appropriate way to manage money.
No, and one of the things too I just want to point out is that the Board of Finance has brought up, I've watched the last couple of ones where they've been talking about it. So I just want to clarify too, so that if we have a line item such as our medical reserve or a reserve that ties back to a line item, our SPED reserve ties back to our tuition and our SPED costs. Those line items don't fall under that state law. And we can move funds from those lines at any given point into those reserve funds, and it does not have to come under this MOU. Only the money that is being moved from into it would be in this case, this non-lapsing fund, the 373, or into the capital projects fund, the 423. Those are considered non-lapsing funds and then would come under the state law. So really what they're trying to do is, what the town is trying to do is to say that they want to codify the process, right, is all they're trying to do. And so it's not that we need it, but you're putting a process in place so that later on someone can't, it's a formality, but yes, I understand what you're saying too. I agree.
Thank you, Howard.
Yes. Are there any other questions about that? I know it was a little complicated, a little fast, but again, it's been drawn up by the town attorney. I thought I had included in the package. I don't know if I missed that point of it, but I might have missed that. I can send it out to the board just so they can have a look through what the actual document looks like.
So it's really just adding a step, like you said, a process to something that's already existing, just to clarify it a little bit more.
Right, because it's informal now. Right. This is just formalizing the process.
That's my report. Any questions? Okay, so we have a couple of motions here. So in regard to the approval of the 2023 monthly financial report, including recommended transfers, may I have a motion to approve the monthly financial report, including the recommended transfers?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's approved. May I have a motion to approve the utilization of the Special Education Reserve Fund to fund all special education legal costs?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
And then I have one more. I would like to make a motion to add a motion for the approval of the use of the excess funds to pay for the free meals for all students through December 31st.
So moved.
Okay, so now,
Need a second.
I need a second. Second. So can I have a motion to, right? Right. Can I have a motion to approve the use?
You had to vote.
So you had a second. Any discussion?
Okay, any discussion? Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved, thank you very much.
Now you have to do the actual motion.
And now I have to actually do it?
That just got on the agenda.
I knew there was a second, I knew there was a repetition of it somewhere. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve, yeah?
Yes.
The use of excess funds to pay for the free meals for all students through December 31st?
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, that was
You did it.
exhausting. All right, thank you, everybody. NHEA President Krista Kaplan. So Krista Kaplan's on the agenda to speak on behalf of the North. Okay, is she here? She's not here.
Not here tonight.
Unable to attend. Sorry, I didn't see that part right there. So that brings us to public comment. So again, we have a 5-minute max per speaker, but do we have a max of time on the end?
It's traditionally 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay. So is there anyone that would like to speak during public comment? Again, if you would, please state your name and address and sign the pad on the paper, on the table. Anyone? Okay. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad that I did. My name is Dave Kruzmarzik. I live at 73 Lexington Gardens. I have 3 children, one of whom is enrolled in North Haven schools, and I use he, him pronouns. Like some of the folks who were up here during the first set of public comment, I too am here in response to some of the things that were shared in the public comment in the September meeting. I feel like some of those folks or those folks did not speak for me or for my family in terms of the experience that we want our children to have living in North Haven and attending school in North Haven. So really, I'm here to encourage the board to prioritize, continue, and enhance the efforts that have been made towards creating an inclusive environment for students. I think that work is incredibly important. Any number of research would show that it is, but I think particularly for LGBTQ plus students, that work is, as some folks have already referenced, life-changing, and it's life-saving. It makes a massive difference in the lives of these kids. Unfortunately, if you look across the country, a lot of kids do not have that experience. They don't attend schools that are supportive, and that is having an incredibly negative impact on their experience. Whether you look, I mean, there's a ton of research that exists, whether it's the American Academy of Pediatrics, whether it's the American Psychological Association, the Endocrine Society, any number of organizations would tell you that the easiest thing that you can do to prevent depression, to prevent suicide, and to prevent acts of violence against the members of this community is to support them. And that starts with using pronouns, that starts with creating spaces where they feel welcome. If you look at, there's one organization in particular that I think is important. They've been studying the experience of LGBTQ plus students in schools for 25 years now. They're called GLSEN. And most recently, in the middle of October, they published their report for 2021 around the experiences that these kids have. And they look nationwide. And the information that they found is pretty stark. And I thought I should share it with you, given your capacity as board members of education. You directly impact the experience of our kids in our school system. So 80% of LGBTQ students in schools experience some form of harassment. 60% of them experience discrimination at school, and about 80% of them don't participate in extracurricular activities because they don't feel safe. Now that's nationwide. When you start to look, there's a very significant difference between schools that do support inclusion and those that don't. Schools that don't support inclusion, those kids have a significantly lower GPA, it's about 20% lower, and 60% of them miss school incredibly regularly, multiple times a month, because they don't feel safe at the schools that they attend. There's a million other statistics that are in this report. I encourage you to read it. It's an incredibly insightful look at the experience that these children have on a day-to-day basis as they attend schools. I think for me, there's a couple of takeaways. The first is that there was a lot of progress that was being made on this initiative, or on these initiatives nationwide, starting from 2013 through about 2019. All of that progress has gone away in the last 2 years because school boards across the country have chosen to reverse their positions around these things. So that change can happen incredibly quickly. Now, when I walked into the meeting here, it's very clear that North Haven values diversity. They value inclusion. You can see it on the walls of this school. We've heard it tonight, particularly in the comments that Linda shared. And I think that all of that is incredibly impactful and impressive. But it's incredibly important that that work continues, because if it stops for a second, we can go right back to where we were. And I don't want that experience for my kids or for any child in the school system that identifies as LGBTQ. The other big takeaway from this report is that inclusion works. It's actually just the best policy, and the data would support that. No matter where you look, data across, whether it's in schools, whether it's in businesses, whether it's in corporate America, inclusion is the best policy. It generates the best outcomes. So I would encourage all of you to continue that work. And the last thing that I want to say, just in response to some of the comments from the previous board meeting, I find that when the topic of inclusion is discussed, whether it's in a forum like this, whether it's in companies that I work for, that I continue to work for, there are some folks who view this discussion in particular as if it is a zero-sum game. That if you include someone, it means you're taking something away from other people. And I don't believe that that's true. I think there's a way that we can do this that will be impactful to every single student, and in a way that includes everyone and does not cause someone to feel like they have lost something by including another person. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Scott Lehman, Justine Drive, he, him. I think as you all saw and heard tonight, there's plenty of people in this community that strongly believe in inclusion and acceptance. I'm just one of them. I just wanted to put my name and face out there as a longtime resident, grew up here in town. I'd like to see the policies and steps you guys have been taking to continue going forward to support the kids. I really appreciate your comments earlier, Mr. Stern. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello. Lisa Lehman, Justine Drive. We have 2 daughters in the high school. I just wanted to add one piece to what everyone else was saying that I just read today from Washington College's What is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion? And I think it says it best when I think a lot of the comments support the marginalized group, but what we also need to realize is that kids who are in the majority benefit from this inclusion as well. And they think they said it best. Diversity is a human asset. It signifies that any significant difference that distinguishes one individual from another is considered human quality to be treasured and included in the social dynamic instead of being considered a hurdle for human interaction and comprehension. Embracing diversity often means a shift in values and mindsets. Being diverse, though, is not enough. If social relations are not fair and only a few individuals can be successful, the desire of an effective increasing of diversity is the first step in the quest for social justice. Increasing diversity of underrepresented or marginalized groups is an ethical imperative. Once diversity has been increased, inclusion and integration come to play. Inclusion means to provide individuals with a sense of belonging that might surpass the individual's own group identities. A culture of inclusion strengthens the individual's attachment to a larger community. And once included, individuals need to feel that their chances to succeed are as equal as anybody else's. A culture of equity guarantees that people would be able to access the necessary resources to their own success and success of multiple communities. That strengthens the entire community. By including those people, making them feel welcome, and making them be a part of that community, that strengthens the entire community. And I just wanted to point that out, that it doesn't take away, as the last gentleman said, but it just adds, and the sum of the pieces is much greater than the parts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Glenn from Dell Avenue. I had no intention of coming up here tonight, but here I am. I stand with many of the people behind me. I have a high school junior, a high school freshman, and a 7th grader. So far, I've been proud of the North Haven public school system. I only hope I want to be clear that my children do not identify as LGBTQ. That's not really relevant to the fact that I expect them to embrace diversity. I expect that North Haven Public Schools demonstrate that they embrace diversity and inclusion. That is just an expectation that I have regardless of who they are. So thank you for fostering that for North Haven students. I also am a teacher of over 20 years. I teach elementary school, not in North Haven, but nearby. It was very important, Dr. Stork, for you to mention how you support teachers, especially during these times that, things are very challenging. Just within our own classrooms, they are just challenging. Dealing with children all day is challenging. But I think it was really important for you to show that you took this stance, and hopefully all of you take a stance that teachers really are doing their best to foster creativity, and that teachers love children and are only doing the best for their best interests. And I think it's important to show that publicly. They are respected by the North Haven Public Schools. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. At this time, can I have a motion to adjourn the November 10th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.